Hello and welcome to the weekly recap. This week we mainly covered Polo, first story on the US Open and the penalty shootout, second story on modern umpiring. As always, the links to these stories will be in the description of the video, so make sure you check there for those and any other relevant links you may need. Let's get going. To quickly bring you up to speed, the US Open tournament begins with league play. However, league play games can conclude with multiple teams tied. At that point, it can require teams to select one player to take a series of penalty shots in a penalty shootout. The shootout is a relatively new phenomenon in high-goal polo. Once used as a last resort to break up a three-way tie, it's now part of the tournament's overall format in order to ensure a fair league system. This year, 9 teams out of the original 11 would end up in the penalty shootout, each at the mercy of one player to bring them forward in the tournament. Now, that's a high-pressure situation. While the idea of shooting penalties is fundamental to any mundane polo practice or warm-up, the pressure of a shootout uses silence and anticipation to transform this into a monumental task. Now your team's future in the tournament is riding solely on you. However, it has been argued that games are won or lost by penalties in general. Make all your penalties and you're going to win the game has been a mantra passed on to players by many a polo old-timer. Of course, you can score as spectacular of a goal as you want, and you may even earn MVP for it. But if your team missed all of their penalty shots, it's still entirely possible that you'll lose the game. Thursday last week was a US Open frenzy. 4 games were played that day, the results of those games requiring 7 of the 8 teams that played moving on to the epic penalty shootout. Coca-Cola, DUS, and BTA all had 3-1 win-loss records. They duked it out to see who would be on the fast track to the semis, and it was Polito Pierres for Coke and Tommy Pinello for BTA who landed those spots. 6 more shooters entered the fray, their fate more drastic since losing in the shootout meant their team's US Open campaign was over. Mini quarterfinals loomed. 3 slots remained, with DUS filling the 4th. Lefay, Dudecorp, and Clearwater took an early bath as Lorenzo Chavan earned passage for Pilot. And both La Dolfina teams went through thanks to the penalty shooting prowess of Perato Cambiaso and Diego Cavanaugh. Chavan's reaction was the best. He galloped down to the far side of the field after the shootout with his stick raised high. The Pilot team camp still fieldside after their match against Lefay erupted. In that final day of league play, La Dolfina teams were pitted against each other, father versus son. Adolfo Cambiaso and La Dolfina Tamara delivered a win that advanced them to the penalty shootout. The luck of the draw afterwards saw both teams in a rematch in the mini-quarter-final. Perato Cambiaso and La Dolfina Scone lost again and were out of the Open. La Dolfina Tamara advanced to the final 4 to face BTA in the semis. Fighting for a place in the other semifinal, a twist of fate saw another family face-off in the mini-quarterfinal. Heta Castagnola with Pilot would face his brother Barto Castagnola with DUS. Pilot won, lining up a semifinal game against Coca-Cola. Now, post-semifinals, Coca-Cola lost to Pilot 15-5, and BTA pulled ahead in the second half to take out La Dolfina Tamara in a 16-10 victory in the semis. Next is a story on modern umpiring and the role of technology in officiating. For instance, it is the 6th chukker of the semifinals of the US Polo Championship. A call is made offsetting fouls at the end of the 5th, resulting in a throw-in. It's not a particularly close game, with Coca-Cola trailing Pilot at this point 14-4, but even so, the call is reviewed just as carefully as any other would be. This is how every play and every call on it is scrutinized. While the teams are packing up and horse trailers departing for the barn, an officiating team of USPA umpires are reviewing and discussing in their post-game debrief. You see, umpiring in polo has gone through a quiet revolution. Some of you may recall that not long ago, players would often umpire each other, and a third man would be relying on his eyesight to make a call from the sidelines. Now there's a drone to provide close-up footage as a part of a replay system breaking down every angle of play. At the center of this footage is a replay hub in the shape of a dedicated and highly equipped USPA umpire's van. And because each team gets only one challenge per half, and the replay official has the final say, gone are the days of players complaining and appealing on the field. The camera on the drone now carries the final verdict. As far as the future, further advances in officiating may come through the use of AI. While things like goal line technology might be technically doable now, the cost is still very prohibitive. AI technology, however, is expected to bring this cost down, so I suppose we'll see. However, technology isn't necessarily going to replace the umpire's role entirely. While technology may provide more information, it doesn't really allow for interpretation of a situation. While something might be a foul in one game, it's not necessarily going to be in another. That's where the human element comes in and remains somewhat crucial. Lots of quotes from the umpires in that full story, and more information on how exactly they make their calls, so be sure to check that out if you're interested. That's going to wrap up our big stories for this week. Of course, as always, the links to them will be in the description. You can check us out over on paperhorsemedia.com. You can get other short summaries over on TikTok. We hope you enjoyed our stories this week. As always, make sure to subscribe and let us know what you thought of them in the comments. Other than that, guys, enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.